The novel was written by C.S. Lewis and was first published in 1950. The main characters of the novel are four siblings: the eldest, Peter Pevensie, Susan Pevensie, Edmund Pevensie, and the youngest, Lucy Pevensie. The story is set during World War II. Due to the air raids on London, the Pevensie children were sent to the countryside to stay with the eccentric Professor Kircher. On their first day, it was raining, so the children decided to explore the professor's enormous house, which was full of unexpected places and surprises. This is how they came upon a room with a large wardrobe. The three older siblings moved on, but Lucy decided to look inside the wardrobe, where, to her great surprise, she saw a snow-covered forest. Intrigued, she stepped inside and met a faun, who was half man and half goat. The faun was startled by the girl, but once he calmed down, he asked how she had entered Narnia. She replied that she had come through the wardrobe. The faun revealed that his name was Mr. Tumnus and invited her for tea. Lucy agreed and followed him. At his home, she drank tea and had a meal while the faun played his flute. When the girl announced that she had to return, Tumnus began to cry. He confessed that he was a servant of the White Witch who had seized power over Narnia. It was because of her that it was always winter. His task was to kidnap humans and deliver them to the White Witch, who, in his belief, killed them. Lucy begged the faun to let her go. He agreed and escorted the girl back to the lamppost, which marked the border between Narnia and the human world. Lucy stepped out of the wardrobe and told everything to her siblings. She was surprised when they claimed she had been gone for only a few seconds. The girl took her siblings to the wardrobe to prove she was telling the truth. However, this time, they did not travel to Narnia. Her siblings did not believe Lucy's stories. The next day, the children were playing hide and seek. Edmund saw Lucy hiding in the wardrobe and followed her, but when he stepped inside, he too was suddenly transported to Narnia. There, he met a strange woman. She declared herself the Queen of Narnia and invited Edmund into her sledge. She conjured a hot drink for him and a box of Turkish Delight. As the boy helped himself, he answered the strange being's many questions. The Turkish Delight was enchanted, however, and whoever ate it felt a growing, insatiable hunger for more. Without even noticing, Edmund told the Queen about his family and revealed that Lucy was also in Narnia. The witch asked him to bring his siblings to her, promising him all the Turkish Delight he could want as a reward. Edmund agreed to the proposal and set off back. Near the lamppost, he met Lucy and returned home with her. This time, Lucy again told her older siblings about Narnia. When she asked Edmund to confirm that the land truly existed, he lied, saying they were only pretending. Susan and Peter began to worry about Lucy's state of mind, so they went to speak with Professor Kirk. To their surprise, he did not share their concerns. He suggested that the girl was likely telling the truth, as she had never been a liar. Furthermore, he stated that they must have narrow horizons if they could not imagine that Narnia exists. He also explained that the fact Lucy had been gone for only a few seconds could be because time in that mysterious land runs quite differently than on Earth. The bewildered siblings left the room. Sometime later, a group of sightseers was moving through the house. Wanting to avoid them, the four children hid in the room with the wardrobe. When they decided to step inside, they were all transported to Narnia. Only then did Edmund admit that he had been there before. Lucy led everyone to Tumnus's house. There, they discovered that someone had ransacked the home and arrested the faun on charges of high treason. Lucy was certain it was the witch's doing. The children decided to help the faun. Suddenly, a robin appeared and led the siblings into the heart of the forest, where they met Mr. Beaver. He revealed that he would take them to Aslan, but first he brought them to his home for a meal. There, along with Mrs. Beaver, he served the children potatoes and fish. Mr. Beaver warned them to be vigilant, as spies were everywhere. Even some of the trees could be listening. He added that Tumnus had been arrested by the secret police, who served the White Witch. In his opinion, the faun had been turned into stone, and only Aslan could save him. He urged them to meet Aslan, the true king of Narnia, who was a great lion. They were to meet him at the stone table and thus fulfill the prophecy that the evil times in Narnia would end when two sons of Adam and two daughters of Eve sat on the four thrones at Cair Paravel. The White Witch had seized the throne for herself, claiming to be human. In reality, she was half giant and half jinn, descended from Lilith. the mythological figure said to be Adam's first wife. During the conversation, it was noticed that Edmund had vanished. It turned out he had fled to the White Witch. Peter wanted to go after him to save him, but Mr. Beaver deemed it too dangerous. The witch wanted to capture all 4 of them to prevent the prophecy from coming true. Meanwhile, on his way to the castle, Edmund kept telling himself that he was on the right side. He fantasized about the changes he would make once he became a prince. Finally, he reached the castle. In its courtyard, he saw many figures turned into stone statues, including a lion, which led Edmund to mistakenly believe the queen had already defeated Aslan. Upon entering the castle, the boy met Morgrim, the wolf and chief of the secret police. The wolf led him before the queen, where Edmund revealed everything he had overheard at the beaver's house. The news that Aslan had arrived in Narnia shook the queen to her core. Meanwhile, the other 3 children and the beavers set out on a long journey toward the stone table. Along the way, they encountered Father Christmas, who presented the children with gifts. He had appeared in Narnia for the first time in many years because the White Witch's power was fading. Mrs. Beaver received a new sewing machine, and Mr. Beaver was assured that his dam had been repaired and finished. Peter was given a sword and a red shield featuring a golden lion. Susan received a bow, arrows, and a magic horn that could summon help. Lucy received a small dagger and a bottle of a magical cordial capable of healing any wound or illness. After delivering the gifts, Father Christmas continued his journey across Narnia. Meanwhile, Edmund and the White Witch set out from her castle in pursuit of the siblings. Edmund asked for more Turkish Delight, but was met with a cruel refusal. He saw the witch ordering her servants to enter the beaver's house and kill everyone they encountered. The boy realized that the queen stood on the side of evil and that he had become a traitor. Along the way, the witch, in a fit of rage, turned any creatures they encountered into stone statues. Soon, Edmund noticed that the snow had begun to melt. Finally, the sledge got stuck in the mud, and from then on, everyone had to go on foot. The thaw and the blooming flowers heralded the coming of spring. The dwarf remarked that this was surely Aslan's doing. The siblings reached the stone table, where they were welcomed by Aslan. He asked about Edmund and learned that he had sided with the witch. The siblings stood up for him, and the lion agreed to save Edmund. During their conversation, Aslan pointed out the distant castle of Cair Paravel, foretelling that Peter would become the High King there. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of Susan's horn, with which she was calling for help. All the animals wanted to run to the rescue, but Aslan commanded that only Peter should run there. Upon arrival, Peter saw Susan being chased by a great wolf, Morgrim. He immediately leaped toward the beast and killed it with his sword. After the whole incident, Aslan knighted Peter. Information about the death of the wolf Morgrim reached the White Witch, who ordered all her followers to gather. Furthermore, she planned to kill Edmund to prevent the prophecy from coming true. Edmund was tied to a tree, and the dwarf had already begun sharpening his knife. Fortunately, Aslan's messengers arrived in time and freed the boy. The dwarf and the witch managed to hide. The witch took the form of a boulder, and she turned the dwarf into an old tree stump. When Aslan's messengers left, the witch and the dwarf returned to their original forms. Meanwhile, Edmund reunited with the rest of his siblings, whom he sincerely apologized to for the situation. Next, a messenger from the witch arrived to Aslan the lion, asking for a meeting. Aslan agreed and met with the White Witch. She declared that by law, Edmund, as a traitor, belonged to her. If he were not handed over, Narnia would collapse and be swallowed by water and fire. Such a verdict was pronounced by the Emperor beyond the sea, and even Aslan could not oppose him. Aslan asked the witch for a private meeting. After the meeting, the witch was satisfied, and Aslan was depressed. The lion announced to the children that the witch had renounced her right to Edmund's life. Later in the novel, Aslan gave Peter command over the army and announced that he might not take part in the battle against the White Witch's forces himself. Susan and Lucy were worried about the sudden change in Aslan's mood, as he was extremely depressed. When they saw that he had left his pavilion, they followed him. Together they reached the stone table, but the lion commanded them to go back. The girls seemingly obeyed the order, but in reality, they hid behind the bushes. Before their eyes appeared a crowd of monsters in the company of the witch. The lion was bound and humiliated with insults, kicking, and the shearing of his mane. Aslan offered no resistance. Bound, he lay on the stone table. The witch approached him and announced that Aslan had offered his life in exchange for sparing Edmund's life. However, the White Witch announced that she would first kill the lion and then deal with the 4 siblings. Then she slew Aslan with a stone knife. After killing the lion, everyone dispersed. Then the girls left their hiding place and ran to their friend's body. They removed his muzzle and mourned him all night. Tiny mice that appeared around Aslan's body began to gnaw through the bonds tying him. At dawn, a loud crash was heard. It turned out that the stone table had cracked and Aslan's body had disappeared. Lucy loudly asked if it was magic and heard a voice saying that it was. When the girls turned around, they saw a living Aslan, who announced, "When a willing victim who has committed no treachery is killed in a traitor's stead, the table will crack, and death itself will start working backwards." At the sight of the living Aslan, joy filled the hearts of Susan and Lucy. The girls climbed onto the lion's back and set off on a journey through Narnia. Thus, they reached the White Witch's castle. The lion jumped over the fortress walls, and so they found themselves in her courtyard, filled with stone statues. With his warm breath, Aslan began to stir the statues to life. The first was the statue of another lion, as well as satyrs, centaurs, and giants. All of them were enemies of the witch and friends of Narnia. Also, Tumnus the fawn was restored to the world of the living. The army of revived figures set out to help Peter's army, which was weakening in the fight against the witch's hosts. On the spot, Aslan saw Peter fighting the White Witch. Then he leaped onto the witch and killed her. Peter's reinforced army won the battle. After the fight, Peter praised Edmund's intelligence. He acknowledged that if not for the younger brother, they would have surely lost the fight. The witch was turning Peter's soldiers into stone statues. Edmund noticed that to prevent this, it was necessary to destroy her wand. When they accomplished this, hope for victory entered their army. In this action, however, Edmund was wounded. After the fight, Lucy used her magic potion to heal her brother. When he recovered, Peter knighted him. Aslan crowned the children as rulers of Narnia and then disappeared. Mr. Beaver explained to them that Aslan would return when he was needed. Long years of the children's reign followed, and peace and harmony came to Narnia. Peter was called Peter the Magnificent. Susan was called Susan the Gentle. Edmund received the nickname of King Edmund the Just, and cheerful Lucy, Queen Lucy the Valiant. Years passed, and the siblings set out on a hunt for the white stag, which granted the wishes of anyone who caught it. They reached the lamppost, which was the exit from the land of Narnia. As if through a mist, they remembered that they had been in this place long ago. They wanted to continue the hunt, but suddenly they were transported to the wardrobe and became children again. And from behind the wall, they heard the voice of Mrs. Macready, who was still in the hall and showing sightseers around. The children told the whole story to the professor. He assured them that one day they would return to Narnia, though not through the wardrobe.